The offense has changed a lot. He's a playmaker. I wouldn't say it's changed in the fact that we're running anything different. But he's got that game-breaking ability where you can catch what may be an insignificant slant for somebody else and take it to the house.
40 yards or 90 yards for a touchdown.
Take it to the house. So, that's definitely how our offense have changed in that dynamic.
Today's Friday, November 30th. This is the Cowboys Beat on CLNS Media. I'm Ari Temkin, along with Patrick Conn. You can tweet us. I am at Ari Sports, ARI Sports. My man Patrick Conn is at Draft Cowboys. On today's podcast, we'll talk with Noah Brown, who was a guy that had a good offseason, and having been with his team for a couple of years, looked like he was finally going to make some hay with this roster, and then got hurt and was kind of an afterthought. But, he's really starting to make a name for himself in both, as a blocking wide receiver, but also as a pass catcher. So we'll talk with Noah Brown here in a bit. But I wanted to start off with my buddy Ben Rogers from the Ben and Skin Show on 105.3 The Fan. They were having an interesting discussion on the Ben and Skin Show, and it centers around a tweet from Ben Rogers. And Patrick, that's where I want to start today. So the tweet is, do you trust the Cowboys front office? What's the best and worst Cowboys front office decisions over the past few years that factor in most to your trust level? So, and it's interesting that he positions it that way, Patrick, because I'm not a huge fan of draft grades, because I think what we do is when you analyze the draft, you have certain guys you like, certain guys you don't like, and then when those guys go to teams, the guys that you like go to one team, you like those drafts, and when the guys that you didn't like go to another team, you don't like that draft, right? So it's just based on how you felt about certain guys going into the draft. So that's why I think it's a fool's errand. I know it's a business and you have to do it, but I think it's a fool's errand to grade a draft immediately after. And here's what I always say. Do you have a trust, is there a trustworthiness to the front office when it comes to the draft? Have they been consistent? And, with the Cowboys draft, you have to sort of trust that they've selected the right guys because their track record is incredible. Especially relative to other teams. Now, Taco Charlton's a miss, at least he is now. But beyond that, this is as good of a franchise as drafting in the first round and drafting throughout the draft as there is in the NFL. You're not going to hit 100%, but I think the Cowboys certainly have drafted better than 50, 60% of the other teams in the league, especially the last 5 or 6 years.
I think, you look at that first round, right? You look at what they've done, with Travis Frederick, and the national perception with the Travis Frederick was, wow, they reached for a third-round pick.
Even Cowboys fans felt that way.
Oh yeah. I was talking with Brian Broaddus shortly after that, and he was asking me, he was like, what did you think? And I said, obviously there's a coach in here that didn't like Sharif Floyd, and, which, looking back now, it was a smart move, not taking him. And they go with Travis Frederick, and even I was like, okay, I had like a second, third round grade on the guy. So immediately after, it's like, oh man, that's a terrible pick, and then he turns out to be this all pro, all world, best center in the game.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
and that's the 2013 draft.
Right.
Which is probably one of the bad drafts they've had. Escobar was their second-round pick. Terrence Williams was their third-round pick. Wilcox in the fourth, or he was also a third-round pick. B.W. Webb in the fourth. Joseph Randall in the fifth. Devontae Holloman in the sixth.
Right. Holloman, I was a big fan of. I got to know him off the field. Great guy. Sucks what happened to him, injury-wise. I thought he might have something. I thought he was going to be a really good player for this team. But you're right. As a whole, you look at that draft and you're like, I don't know. But then you go to 2014 and you get Zach Martin and DeMarcus Lawrence. You can't give me two better picks than those two back-to-back. I would argue 2010 is close because in 2010 you got Dez Bryant and Sean Lee.
Yeah.
So I would look at those two as like, those are probably two of the better drafts you've had. So from a talent acquisition, specifically with a draft angle here, yeah, absolutely. I trust this team. Now, I'm not going to lie. I poo-pooed all over the Taco Charlton because I didn't like him. coming out, all I heard was he had a bad work ethic and all these other things. And, as you've said time and time again, the proof is in the pudding. I'm watching Taco Charlton when he's healthy, and I'm like, this guy ain't it.
Yeah, I mean, and especially when you look at the guys they didn't take. TJ Watt has become sort of a perennial All-Pro, and that's the guy that commonly is,
That's the one I'm going to yell at. I'm like,
yeah.
Bang the table. I'm like, are you kidding me? TJ Watt is right there. It's kind of funny because when JJ Watt said he was the better athlete of the family, you're like, huh? You say what?
The way I look at drafts is you have to hit on your first round pick. You have to hit on your first round pick. You have to really hit on your second round pick too. And then if you're able to hit on one or two more in the draft, because if you think about having one pick in each round, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you come out of the draft with 3 to 4 players that are starters or rotation players for your team, 1 through 7, you have to hit on 1 and 2. And then if you hit on 1 or 2 more of them, a third or a fifth, whatever it may be, if you come out of the draft with 3 out of the 7, that's okay. 4 out of the 7 is a good draft. That's the way I consider it. And look, there are very few teams in the NFL that are going to get 4 out of 7 that become starters or rotational players. But the Cowboys, you look at the 2016 draft, Zeke Elliott's their first round pick. Jalen Smith looked like a bad pick, but now looks like a great pick, second round pick. Their third round pick that year was Malik Collins. Obviously, Dak Prescott's your fourth round pick. Now Tapper was the other one, but he didn't pan out at all. Anthony Brown was a 6th round pick, and so was Kayvon Frazier. So was Rico Gathers. That 2016 draft, when you think about guys making a difference and becoming important components of this team, the only guy you missed on that entire draft basically is Charles Tapper.
I can live with that.
Yeah, that's an impeccable draft. The 2017 draft, Taco's a miss, but Cheeto is a 2nd round pick, looks good. Jordan Lewis looks good as a 3rd round pick. Now Switzer obviously was only here for 1 year, but you turned him into Tavon Austin. Xavier Woods, he's okay. Noah Brown was a 7th round pick. So I guess if we return to the Ben Rodgers question, do you trust the Cowboys front office? So let me ask you, Patrick, do you trust the Cowboys front office?
Well, see, that's a loaded question. As I was, trying to get to earlier when we first talked about it, I trust them in a talent acquisition as far as drafting. I'm getting more comfortable with their talent acquisition, especially when you go out and you trade for a guy like Amari Cooper. That helps you. You know what I mean? The problem that I'm going to have now is yes, I trust you on that side, but now I'm kind of looking at that coaching staff going,
Yeah, look, the Cowboys, when Jerry Jones was basically running the show, put themselves in position to where they were, in a bad salary cap situation, right? They even if that's sort of a fallacy, they weren't responsible in how they spent money. They weren't making good moves in free agency. They would just sign players that fulfilled needs, and it didn't work out for them. So they had a complete 180 from their personnel acquisition standpoint, right? And Stephen Jones probably took over in a major way, and so too did Will McClay became much more important. And they didn't really do anything in free agency. You look at Amari Cooper and the acquisition of Amari Cooper, but before Amari Cooper, correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, but Brandon Carr is the last guy that they brought in from outside the organization that was a big name, that wasn't them, searching through the scrap heap, right? So,
yeah, I'd say he was a tier 1 guy.
Yeah, but that's it, right? Like nobody else basically between Brandon Carr and Amari Cooper now, right?
Well, yeah, but you also have to look at it. They went out, and I'm not saying that you missed once, you shouldn't go back to it. But for the amount of money that Brandon Carr was playing, he should have played a lot better.
Yeah, and that was probably Steven saying to Jerry, "See, this is why we don't do this, because guys, when they're getting to that second and third contract." They tend to break down. Their bodies break down. They're not as good. They're playing for the contract early on. And that's
right.
That was when they had that dramatic shift in philosophy, and they didn't go out and spend money and fulfill needs in free agency. They just didn't do it. They didn't do it at all.
Right.
They only wanted to retain their own guys and then find guys on the cheap. You know, they when Jerry was on the show in the early 2000s, they were very active that first week of free agency. And they, you know, in the last decade have become the opposite. And that's why I thought this upcoming offseason was going to be interesting, because they were finally out of quote unquote salary cap hell. They had, you know, Romo's deal finally came off the books, and Dez's deal finally comes off the books. And Witten's deal finally comes off the books. So like they don't have any of that money for players that are no longer playing in the team.
Right.
So I figured, like, would this be the time where they finally dive back in the free agency pool? And they didn't even wait until the offseason to do it. They middle of the season had brought in Amari Cooper. And that's, like, fundamental to building a championship roster in the modern day NFL is the core of your team has to be built through the draft. But you have to be able to supplement areas where you've missed in the draft in free agency. And that's what the Cowboys had been missing. That's what they had been missing. They were completely unwilling to supplement the areas of their roster that they had not fulfilled in the draft through free agency. But it seems like they finally are. And so I guess, like, my answer to this question is, hell yeah, I trust this front office. You know, Jerry Jones is still viewed sort of around the league as sort of as a joke, but I don't know. I think that's just this wrong perception of this team and this organization, not only how it's run, but also just, again, I thought the one missing piece was be more active in free agency. And if the Amari Cooper deal is any indication, they will be. Yeah.
And you know, it's funny. And I kind of want to go back to your point about Steven, you know, kind of taking over. He had a quote, that I heard him on, I guess it was 105.3 The Fan. It was a couple of years ago. And he said something that it kind of gave you a glimpse of how he views free agency. He said, good players get paid like great players, and great players get paid like elite players. And I was like, okay, so it kind of told me that they're looking at these guys going, look, we want you, but we don't want to pay you on a tier above what you are.
Yes.
You know, so I understand that. But yeah, you go back and you're looking and you're going, okay, all those contracts are coming off the books, and now they're during the off season they're going to be like, okay, we got to pay Tank, you know, let's give Amari a deal so that we can get his, you know, $13.9 million off the books. Let's cut that in half, right? Let's give him 7.5 up front and then work the deal, because as the years go by, the cap goes up, so you have more room to play with, you know, right. So they're going to have a decision on Byron and eventually, you know, Dak, Zeke in a couple of years, you know, but I still think there's room there that they can mess with. And, you know, what's interesting is, like, you know, Sean Lee's going to be another one that they're going to have to talk about. But I think Sean Lee is that type of guy that he's going to do what's necessary for the team. Yeah. So I think when you look at his contract, if he has to take a lesser role on the team, because obviously with his injuries, you can't count on him. He's going to get hurt. Those hamstrings are going to give out. Yeah. So if he is on the team next year and it's not in a coaching type role, I think it's going to be at a lesser contract, but I think he's the right type of guy that's going to do that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I do think there's a kind of, and, you know, I even said this when they traded for Amari. I said, you know, my ears perked up. I said, okay, that's not the front office we're used to. And that makes you go, oh, okay, well, maybe there's some changes here. Maybe they're going to, you know, try some new things. And so, yes, I do trust this front office to a point. Now, and you know what, and when you're talking about talent acquisition, you're talking about all these different players that they're bringing in, I think they're doing a really good job. My problem now is I'm looking at that coaching staff and going, why can't you figure out a way to use these guys? You got one of I think it's the third youngest team in the NFL. The third. And they're competitive week in and week out. So I'm looking at that staff going, you got to do something. And I'm going to tell you right now, I do not have a problem with Rod Marinelli in this defense because I love what him and Chris Richard are doing. I'm looking at Scott Linehan and going, you need to fix this. Quit trying to jam this square into a round hole, okay? Build your offense around Dak Prescott. Quit trying to force him to be your pocket passer, because he's not going to do that. But what I will applaud them for was going to get an Amari Cooper, because he's what we would call Dak friendly.
Yeah, no question about that. And it's obviously paid, you know, tremendous dividends for this team, this franchise. So do you trust this front office standpoint? I think from a personnel acquisition standpoint, we both agree. You know, they've been pretty good in the draft. And now that they go out and bring in Amari Cooper, it's obvious they're willing to go outside the organization to improve, which is something they haven't done. So the only question about trustworthiness for this front office is in their decision making on coaches, and maybe more specifically, the head coach who's responsible for then hiring and firing assistant coaches. Do you think, obviously, if this team makes the playoffs, it's hard to think there's going to be significant changes, but I mean, do you think that they could look at Cliff Kingsbury bringing him in as an offensive coordinator?
That's a hot name right now. I'll tell you that much. You
want to talk about a guy that fits his schemes to the personnel.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And as you know, I'm a huge tech guy, and you know what? I'll tell you, watching them this season. So they have Alan Bowman, who has to come in. He's this true freshman quarterback, and he's more of that prototypical air raid quarterback, right? Yeah. Well, he has the partially collapsed lung, and he has to go out. And so they play Jet Duffy. Well, Jet Duffy is a completely different quarterback than Alan Bowman. So what you saw from Cliff was he took his offense and he changed it. He said, "Okay, you're still going to throw, but I'm going to give you more read option." You know, he allowed him to run, and they were able to beat, Texas Christian University with Jet Duffy using that game plan. They were able to do those things. So you look at something like that and you're like, okay, so, I think one of the issues that they had, in years past under Linehan is they built this offense to go around Tony Romo. Tony Romo goes down, they expect the backup to be Tony Romo. It's like, it doesn't work. And I think that was some of the issues that they had last year. During Dak's rookie season, he was able to run the offense, but I almost felt like last year they were trying to also say, okay, you're going to be Tony Romo again. No, that doesn't work. And they found that out. So what did they do? They made changes. The changes didn't work. So what did they do? They went out and got Amari Cooper. Okay. And now the offense is starting to, they're kind of catching their stride right now. Ezekiel Elliott is back to being 2016 Ezekiel Elliott, guy who's just running through defenses. It's not just running, it's receiving. And Zeke's on pace to have all these personal bests this year. Amari Cooper is having probably the best, I know it's 4 games in, but he's on pace to have a lot better season than he had in Oakland. So it's like those two guys together are really allowing them to do things, and that's why I think people can get excited about how this Cowboys team is going to be moving forward.
That's a great point and a great segue into our second topic, but first,
we're going to talk with Cowboys wide receiver Noah Brown in a moment, but first I've got to tell you about Roman. And look, guys are terrible at taking care of their health, whether it's a knee injury, bad back, or something worse. Guys are usually more comfortable rubbing some dirt on it than seeing a doctor. I mean, I'm guilty of it myself. I've had back pain now for weeks, and I just wish and hope that it will go away. It's one morning I'll wake up and I'll be fine because I don't know if I'm lazy or I just don't want to go. And the same is true for erectile dysfunction. Studies show 70% of guys who experience ED don't get treated for it. Thankfully, Roman created an easy way to get checked out by a doctor and get treated for ED online. It's perfect. Roman is a one-stop shop where licensed U.S. physicians can diagnose ED and ship medication right to your door. With Roman, there are no waiting rooms, awkward face-to-face conversations, or uncomfortable trips to the pharmacy. They make it so easy. You can handle everything discreetly online. All you have to do is visit GetRoman.com/CB. Fill out a brief medical onboarding, chat with a doctor, and get FDA-approved ED meds delivered to your door in discreet, unmarked packaging. Could it get any better than that? No waiting rooms, no awkward conversations with doctors, none of that. Just visiting online quickly, and you get the ED medications delivered right to your door with unmarked, discreet packaging. Guys, go online and get checked by the doctor. Erectile dysfunction is a problem that guys don't tackle, but with Roman, it's really easy, so take care of it. For a free online visit, go to GetRoman.com/CB for Cowboys Beat. GetRoman.com/CB. That's GetRoman.com/CB for a free online visit. GetRoman.com/CB. GetRoman, ROMAN.com/CB.
All right, let's talk with Noah Brown, and What's it like not only for you to finally get activated on this active roster, but now, play meaningful snaps for this football team?
It feels good. That's what I'm here for, to have a winning impact, and finally got back healthy, and I'm able to get out there and do that. So I'm excited.
So, back healthy, on the active roster, you've been here for a while. Is it just, all the hard work finally paying off for you?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I was having one of my best off seasons I've had, before I got hurt, and it just feels good to still be able to keep going, keep putting work in, and now I'm back activated and able to showcase the work I put in.
Previous weeks, you've been active, and when you get out there, it's been a tell. You've been part of the running game. Right. So this past week, you get out there, and now all of a sudden Washington bails out to stop the run because they see you in the game, and now you're out there catching passes, you're out there running routes. Right. Is that something you take a lot of pride in?
Yeah, there's definitely something I take a lot of pride in. That's just always how I play football. Aggressive, and you want to make whoever's across from you feel pressure on every play, whether you're getting the ball or not. And I feel like blocking is a way to do that. And also, when you come in and you're able to be physical like that, now you're able to get open a little bit easier. So I think that everyone should play that way. And that's just how I play football.
You almost had that touchdown, huh?
Right. Yeah. We almost had that one, but there'll be more.
Yeah, that was one that they completely bailed out to stop the run. Somebody picked you up, but he didn't even believe that you were running around. You were just wide open across the formation.
Exactly. Yeah. We pray for plays to work like that. We got a couple good ones, and I'm confident there's more touchdown opportunities.
How much has this offense changed since Amari got here?
The offense has changed a lot. He's a playmaker. I wouldn't say it's changed in the fact that we're running anything different. But he's got that game-breaking ability where you can catch what may be an insignificant slant for somebody else and take it to the house.
40 yards or 90 yards for a touchdown.
And take it to the house. So that's definitely how our offense has changed in that dynamic.
Are teams playing you guys differently defensively?
They're going to have to because, like I said, you got somebody explosive like that, you got to give it a little bit of extra attention. So, I think that it's been a great addition, and it's only going to open up everything for us.
Have you guys been hanging out together? What's the camaraderie and the chemistry like with a guy that comes in mid-season?
He's a great dude. I feel like he came in and he messed with the team immediately. He's one of the guys who he makes all the big plays, but when he walks into the room, you might not even know he's there unless you speak to him. He's a very reserved, humble guy, and I think a guy like that works well with our team. What
about Zeke? It seems like with Zeke and Amari, and now it's just working for everybody on offense.
Yeah, this is what you dream for as a team, to hit your stride at the right time. I think that at the beginning a lot of people got down on us, but in this locker room we kept our faith and we knew we hit our stride, and I think we're doing that.
Yeah, you guys started 3-4, hit the bye. You trade for Amari, you make the move with the offensive line coach. What changed about this team?
Like I said, I don't think anything changed. I think we just kept plugging. I think we had faith in who's in the room, who's doing what, and that eventually it's going to pop for us. And I think that's what's happening.
All right. So what do people not know about Noah Brown that they should, or that it's maybe what do you like to do? What's your personality like?
I'm a real reserved guy. I like to keep to myself a little bit. Play a lot of video games, listen to a lot of music, just regular stuff.
What kind of music?
Everything. I listen to everything except for country.
Everything except country. What do you listen to right now? What do you get in your car and you have to hear this?
Well, I'll give you something I'm excited for. I'm excited for the new Meek Mill album on the 30th that drops right after our game. So that'll definitely be playing in my earphones for a while.
Nice.
Yes, sir.
Married, kids?
No, not married, no kids.
I'm having my second child on Friday. So I'm going to be doing the post-game show from AT&T Stadium until 1 o'clock in the morning. Then I got to go home. I live in Plano. It'll take me like 30 minutes to get home. I'll get to sleep by 2. Up at 5 to go to the hospital to have a kid.
Oh, man, that's why they pay you the big bucks. And congratulations. Congratulations on that for sure.
I appreciate that. So you went to Ohio State. Your locker, you're pretty close to Jordan, right? Yeah, right next to Jordan Lewis. Is that on purpose?
I'm not sure if it's on purpose or not, but Jordan's a great dude. I enjoy being teammates with him, and I enjoy being able to talk about the rivalry and stuff like that. So
especially this week,
right? Especially this week, and he owes me a little bit of money, so I'm looking for Jordan right now, actually.
So who should play in the college football playoff? Oklahoma or Ohio State?
Oh, I'm going to say Ohio State. You let us in the party, we're going to take over though. So
all right, thank you to Noah Brown. In a moment, we'll tell you why people are completely underestimating the Cowboys and why everybody's probably wrong about this team, which is interesting. But first, when I say The Athletic, what do you think about? Do you picture a subscription-based publisher of smarter, better sports coverage for diehard fans like you. Look, by now, surely you've heard of The Athletic, and The Athletic DFW I've got to tell you about, with great writers like Calvin Watkins and great personalities of local radio like Jeff Kavanaugh from 105.3 The Fan, KT, Kevin Turner from the Ben and Skin Show, Bob Sturm. But not just that, Sean Shapiro, Levi Weaver, the best, Calvin Watkins, in having breakdowns, film breakdowns with Cowboys players in the locker room. I mean, The Athletic is taking you inside Cowboys locker room, inside the Texas Rangers locker room, inside the Dallas Mavericks locker room, inside the Dallas Stars locker room, giving you unparalleled access. No pop-ups, no ads, no autoplay videos. Instead, readers subscribe for authentic, in-depth coverage written by journalists who know their teams inside and out. Take it from me. I'm a subscriber myself. I couldn't live without my subscription to The Athletic. It's where I get tons of my information, and you can too. Look, subscribers to The Athletic have access to local and national content, so it's not just about The Athletic DFW. There's more than 650 to 700 new stories published every week across all sports. Go to theathletic.com/Cowboys Beat. Theathletic.com/Cowboys Beat. If you use that special URL, you are going to get 40% off your subscription, meaning you can get a subscription for just $2.99 per month. Think about that. When we stop by and get a cup of coffee at Starbucks, it's more than $3 per day. How about $3 a month to get access to the best journalism, the best sports coverage, the best? Theathletic.com/Cowboys Beat. Theathletic.com/Cowboys Beat. Subscribe and be a part of the future of sports journalism. Again, theathletic.com/Cowboys Beat.
Something you were talking about, Patrick, before the Noah Brown interview was, Zeke Elliott is having, his best season, which when you look at his rookie year, it's incredible to note. Amari Cooper is having a fantastic year, and he's just made immediate impact, just showing you the potential that he brings. And, it's funny because you'll see, I don't know that this is Cowboys fans, it's probably from the outside looking in, but they see they're 6-5, they're leading a bad division, that there's not much optimism for this team. And you know what, there is even from inside the fan base a feeling like that. Like there's not much optimism. And to me, I don't know how you can look at this team right now and think that it's the same team that started the year 3-4, right? Like that team's vast. The team now is vastly different than that 3-4 football team that was so inconsistent on offense.
Absolutely, man. You can't look at something 4 weeks ago. But I wanted to go back to a point Noah Brown made, during the interview.
Yeah.
I just keep running to me. How much money do you think Jordan Lewis owes him? All right. So back to the point. No, but you look at a team. 4 weeks ago, this team was dead. I mean, I went ahead and said, all right, let's start the eulogy.
Right.
I mean, because watching that team, they dropped to 3-5, the first week after they get Amari. And I'm like, I thought Amari was going to change things.
Right. That was the week of fire everybody, start this thing over.
Yeah, it started over. Let's, how long until we can get Lincoln Riley in here or Cliff or, anybody but the guys that are here.
Yeah.
And then, they win 3 straight. They win 2 on the road. What? 2 on? They hadn't won a game all year on the road, and now they won back-to-back on the road. They've won 3 games in a row, going into the Saints game. And it's like, who is this team? They're doing everything that we wanted them to do. And that's the funny thing. And, we've talked about it on this podcast before, is they're starting to win, and now Cowboy fans are getting pissed off again. It's like, wait, you were mad because they were losing, but now you're mad because they're winning? Well, we're stuck with the coaching staff. I'm like, just enjoy the victories, and we can deal with the coaching staff when it comes. Because I'm going to tell you this right now. If the Cowboys win the division, go to the playoffs, and get bounced in the first round, bye-bye Scott Linehan. Because I'm almost willing to bet that the reason they don't do well in the playoffs is because of that offense.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right, and I guess a lot of people listening would say that wouldn't be enough. They want Jason Garrett to also be responsible, and it's not that I disagree with that. I just think.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Of course.
Now I know the fan base wants to get rid of Jason Garrett. I get that, and I'm one of those people. I was an avid supporter of Jason Garrett because I loved what he's doing. But, it's like you see the emotion, especially following, the game with Gallup on Thanksgiving.
Right.
You see the emotion and the way that they just kind of, you can hear it in the voice of Jason Garrett. It's like, it's hard to root against that guy. Like, he's just he loves his team and they love him and they play for him. But what if you get rid of Scott Linehan and you bring in another offense coordinator? Are you willing to give it a year or two with a new offensive coordinator under Jason Garrett? Because I believe he has maybe a year or two left on his contract.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not the biggest Jason Garrett fan in the world, but it's hard not to look at the success they've had over the last month and attribute that. Like, Jason Garrett should get credit for that. If he gets credit and blame for all their failures, then he should certainly get credit for their successes.
But that's not how it works. He gets all the blame but none of the credit. Oh, well, that's the way it works, right? I mean, they're losing. Oh, it's Jason Garrett's fault. They're winning. Oh, they're winning in spite of their head coach. No, that's not how this works.
It's not. And Jerry Jones should get credit for making the move to bring in Amari Cooper, because that's why, like, when I look at this team, the optimism for this team, even if other people don't see it, is based on the fact that, this offense and the way they're winning is sustainable, right? Like, they have a good offensive line. They don't have a great offensive line. It's not like the same offensive line they had in 2016, but that offensive line's gone. So they have a good offensive line. They have the best running back in football. They have a legitimate number one wideout who's got the potential to be, one of the 5 or 10 best wide receivers of the game, and Amari Cooper. Like, those are the things you need to be a successful and consistent offense. Mm-hmm. And when teams load up the box to stop Zeke, then you take advantage with Amari Cooper on the outside, and vice versa. And, so that's why, like, people that look at this team and say, well, look at their record, they're winning a bad division. I mean, I get that, but the 3-4, which I single that out because obviously they lost their first game against Tennessee, but that's in the Amari Cooper era, right? That's the first game with him. So they went 3-4 without Cooper, but this is a vastly different team than that team. And that's ultimately my point, is you can't, most teams don't change in season as much as the Dallas Cowboys have in 2018.
No, and it's always that thing, right? Why you always have this hope, right? And we hear about it every year. The teams that catch fire at the right time are the ones who make the playoffs. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And right now, it's not out of the realm of possibility the Cowboys make a run here. They've got very winnable games coming up. They've got Tampa Bay. Colts might be a tough game because the Colts are one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now, outside of New Orleans, who's 10 in a row. It's like they have winnable games, and then they finish up with the Giants. So the Cowboys they have the inside edge here.
As long as they beat Philadelphia and the Giants, they're going to win the division. As long as they beat Philadelphia and the Giants, they're going to win the division.
They got to win those 2 games and one other game. That's it.
Buccaneers, boom, 3 wins.
And so it's like they have a shot here. I agree with you 100%. They're doing it the right way. It's like, Zeke, and he, like you said, he's the best running back in football right now, bar none. I mean, even though, yes, he is, leading the league in rushing, but it's everything that he does. He blocks well. He catches the ball out of the backfield. Teams have to figure out a way to stop him. And when they do, when they're loading up, and we saw it against Washington, they're loading up to stop the run. And what happened? Oh, well, Amari Cooper just went for 170 yards.
That's Patrick Conn on Twitter at Draft Cowboys. I'm Ari Temkin on Twitter at Ari Sports. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Also, make sure to give the podcast a rating because it helps us. There's a lot of Cowboys podcasts out there, so the more ratings we have, the higher up in the priority we're going to be across the podcast network. Also, make sure to check out Patrick on Twitter, Draft Cowboys, and read all the great work that he does for WFAA. And you can catch my live stream every single day on Phantom at facebook.com/watch Phantom. You can also check out Patrick there as well. But for now, for this week, the Cowboys Beat is out. Peace.